Welcome to episode 234 of Sports Geek. On this week's episode, I chat with John Durbin from Pegula Sports about planning the unpredictable NFL draft and how to get fans to actually use your apps.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who likes his beer cold and his pies hot, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan, and please don't boo me. For those of you who aren't in Australia and haven't been following the AFL, the current debate around fan behaviour and whether fans should be allowed to boo. Should they boo? When should they boo? When are they allowed to boo? It's got a little bit out of control. It's not as severe as the fan behaviour problems that some of the NBA players have faced, with Russell Westbrook getting a fine and racial epitaphs and the like. But for me, booing is a part of the theatre of sport. It is part of the home ground advantage, and it is all part of the large pantomime that is sport. Goes back to the gladiator days of the Colosseum, of the fans cheering for the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And as someone who's been a long-time sports fan, I've booed many of a player. For those of you who know me and have maybe followed the NBL for a long time, I led the Tigers hoodlums in my early 20s and led crowds in booing and cheering Andrew Gaze and Leonard Copeland and their opponents. So I think it's a little bit over the top, but I do think there is a case for showing your respect after the game, cheering after the game, and showing respect to your opponents. Once the siren is done, the booing can stop, but it is something that the media can get a hold of. I'm all for keeping people accountable. If they step over that line, and say things around gender or race and the like. But if you're just booing someone to try to get them to miss a goal or a free throw or a penalty kick, that's all part of the game. Anyway, didn't expect to get up on my soapbox so early. But yes, my name is Sean Callanan and you're listening to Sports Geek. As I said, please leave a review. Luckily, there's not a boo rating in iTunes. But yeah, leave a review. 5 stars would be great. If you want to boo, don't need to leave a review. You can always contact me via email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. You can go to the website to listen to the podcast, sportsgeekhq.com, or you can find me on most socials at Sean Callanan or at Sportsgeek. Please get in touch. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM. Tell me that you listen. Tell me which episode you've listened to. Ask me to connect with one of the guests. I'm more than happy to help you as podcast listeners. Before I get into today's episode with John Durbin from Pegula Sports, just want to quickly chat about the Pick My Brain sessions, which are available for booking. They are a 2-hour consulting session where you get to dive in on the topics and questions that you want to dive in on. It's effectively ask me anything and dive in on what you're trying to do, whether it's what you're doing in a digital sense, what you're doing with your sponsors from a campaign's point of view, maybe how you're tackling something with an app, similar to the discussion I have with John here in this podcast, or maybe you just want to dive in on some of the trends and some of the people that I've met and talked to over the years, whether it be from a stadium development, customer experience, that kind of thing. I'm happy to do those sessions. You simply just go to sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain and you can book in for that 2-hour session, and it's available to anyone, anywhere in the world. I'm happy to get up early in the morning or late at night to talk to you as podcast listeners. My guest for this week's episode is John Durbin from Pegula Sports, who run the Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo Sabres, amongst other things, which John will explain. I caught up with John. I met John at the National Sports Forum and sat on a panel with him. And so we caught up to chat about his role, his journey into sports, and the interesting discussion around that. So this is John Durbin from Pegula Sports. Very happy to welcome the Vice President of Marketing at Pegula Sports and Entertainment, John Durbin. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad we're able to chat.
Yes, well, we did meet, and we were on a panel at the National Sports Forum in Las Vegas earlier this year. So we sort of slated this to have a catch up and talk a little bit about your role and what you do at Pegula. But before we get into that, how did you get your break into the world of sports?
Yeah, so I got my break into world of sports late in my career. It was actually a career shift. So I came out of undergrad at Boston College with a communications degree with an emphasis in creative writing, and would have never guessed that I would end up working in sport because I played a lot of sports.
What did you want to be with the creative writing?
Wanted to be a writer
in the creative writing space.
Actually, I wrote comedy, sketch comedy. Okay. So it was really around that script writing for stage and screen was really the writing that I was interested in pursuing. So I moved out to Chicago, took classes at the Second City program there to expand that skill set. And that was not a lucrative career choice to pursue writing. So to get my start, keep a roof over my head, I started working for a media agency called Starcom Media. So that's really what I did to start things off. Worked on a few different accounts there. From there was actually brought into a small boutique agency within the same network called Denu. And what was cool about them, this was around 2008, they specialized in social, mobile, gaming, all of these emerging trends at the time that they're commonplace now. I feel kind of silly talking about these things as emerging.
No, but that's it. Yeah, they were in that stage. I started Sports Geek in 2010, and that's when everyone was still finding that. I like to call it the baby giraffe stage of social and digital. Like everyone was still figuring all those pieces out.
Yeah, it's funny because I worked on Kellogg's at one point. We had lengthy conversations about how do we get some of these characters onto MySpace, right? And that's where we were. So, that's. What brought me in there was to be part of the creative process, the ideation process, and got exposure to a lot of big brands, a lot of new emerging trends, new ways of thinking. The organization was going through some transitions, and I kind of took a pause to think about, okay, what do I want to do next? And funny enough, I had really gotten into sports business as a hobby, as much of a hobby as it can be. I was going to the Sloan Conference in Boston every year and was just enamored with the panels that focused on the business side of sport. It's such a challenge to have this product that you can't control, but you still, in so many different ways, have to sell it. And you've got a magnifying glass on you at all times. It's tough to hide something that happens in sport. Because people are so passionate about it. They care so much about it. So explored a few different paths. And what stood out to me is I didn't want to make this leap into sports without some knowledge or background. Because, again, my background was in writing and communications. I don't think I took a formal marketing class when I was in my undergrad. So I didn't want to just jump in, flame out after a couple of years. So did some research and found the MBA program at the University of Oregon, the Warsaw Sports Marketing Program. So that was around 2012. Went out and applied there, visited there, loved it, got my MBA from there. Great experience. And then from there, I got hired in the fall of 2014 as Director of Marketing for the Sabres. So at the time, our marketing team was about 12 people. And 2 months after I started, the Pegulas purchased the Bills, which really expedited the formation of Pegula Sport and Entertainment and really saw my role expand over the years. So went from Director of Marketing at the Sabres to Director of Marketing at PSE, went from that to Vice President of Sport Marketing with PSE, and then my current role as Vice President of Marketing at PSE. And as the company's evolved and as we've grown, my responsibilities have as well. So, kind of a late leap jumping into the sport world, going back to school for the continuing education too.
But it is, I think, it is a good case study for people who are listening who might be
still studying or interning or wanting to get into sports, it's a tough field to get into, and there's a high desire to get into. It's a competitive field, but the bringing that skill set with to sports is something that gives you an advantage. That experience of the creativity of being able to write and writing comedy as someone that has done and attempted stand-up, the ability to do to be creative and dive into that process. I think it's really valuable when you go back to working on campaigns and coming up with ideas, and then actually trying to broaden your skill set rather than just saying, I'm getting in straight out of college and knowing where you're going to go, because you don't know until you actually start getting some experience and knowing what you like and finding out what you're good at. Then you can actually bring a bit more value when you get into the world of sports.
Absolutely. I mean, I could not agree with that more. That's something that and again, this is just my perspective. It seems like something that's been a bit of a shift in at least the marketing side of sport over the last, 4 or 5 years, where it seems like there's more value being placed on people who are coming and bringing outside perspective on this. Because it's just not a matter of understanding ticket sales. It's a matter of understanding brand and branding and how do these things work, understanding emerging spaces, understanding the media buying space. And like you said, just the creative side. It's a more competitive world than it was 20 or 30 years ago. So you've got to think of new ideas and ways to enhance what you're doing.
So for the people who don't know, whether they be listeners in Europe or in my part of the world, Australia, tell us a little bit more about Pegula Sports and Entertainment. What is the group, and who are some of the teams that are part of that group? You mentioned the Sabres before that are part of the NHL, but what does the larger group now represent?
Yeah, so PSE is a management company for most of the Pegula-owned properties, which includes the Buffalo Bills of the NFL, the Buffalo Bandits of the NLL, which is an indoor lacrosse league, and then our other major brand is the Harbor Center building, which has a few different smaller brands that sit inside it. So 716 Food and Sport, which when it opened, had the largest HD screen in North America, a 38-foot HD screen. Great place to watch a game, which is right across from the arena. So anytime we have an event, that does great. There's a few other restaurants as well in there, the Draft Room. And then I'm not involved, but there is Black River Entertainment down in Nashville, which is a recording studio and label.
Okay. And so when you said, you said you came into the group as part of the Sabres in that director of marketing role. So marketing and director of marketing and marketing departments are different in different sports. What was sort of been your remit in that space, like when you started the Sabres, and has it changed over the years?
Yeah, so when I started with our small group, I had social reporting into me, as well as really the strategy and the brand side of it. And then I worked closely with our analytics team and web development team that was in there. And as we've grown, really those are the two sides that we've grown more than anything else. Our social team used to be one guy, basically.
One person,
Yeah. And now, we have a director of social media who has 6 or 7 social media editors reporting into her that really span all of those properties. So the Bills are in there, the Bandits are in there, the Sabres are obviously in there.
Okay. So it's a cross team, functional team in that sense.
Yeah. So it's a lot of, the space is so massive now. There's so many platforms, so much going on that, even looking at our NFL draft right now, we've sent one person down who's not the primary Bills person to Nashville to capture content, while the guy who runs the account day to day is staying back here in Buffalo, where, so much of the command center and that tracking and sharing happens. So it's just, you have to, in this space, be able to wear a lot of different hats at a lot of different times and plan out as much as you can, because there will be plenty of things that come up that you cannot plan for. So,
well, that was the thing. It's like, that's one of the beauty and one of the curses of sports. There's some things that you can plan for, and that's what, as a marketer, you want to be able to do that. You want to be able to say, oh, this is a really important date and we want to get all our collateral together and here's how we do the launch. And then you have things like the NFL draft, which you do all the planning, but you don't know what's going to happen on the day. How does your team sort of tackle those kind of events?
Yeah, so we get a group together who takes the lead on what the plan actually is and what are we going to do in different scenarios. We talk through them. So, if we trade up, if we trade down, we have graphics ready to go to signal whatever those trades or acquisitions are. And then just kind of knowing and working with our PR group on what their plan is for the player, right? So if they're going through the car wash behind the scenes and doing a bunch of interviews as they, kind of get drafted and get headshots taken, making sure that we're aware of what the plan is for them. If the plan is to fly the draft pick back to Buffalo the night of or the morning after, being aware of that so we can come with them. And a lot of it is just making sure those people are empowered and comfortable with everything that's going on and what could happen. And essentially, what's the communication plan? If something really comes up, that's a huge shocker. Whose decision is it to pursue something or approve something? Just understanding what does that communication tree look like, really?
Yeah. And so is that you liaising with effectively, I guess, a comms or a PR department? Like they're a separate department in sort of team ops and media. And is there an editorial team that someone is driving all of that? Is that sit under marketing or is that sit under comms? Because it's sort of sometimes it's funny where that sometimes sits.
Yeah, it really is, and it's one of the and I'm not saying this sarcastically, part of the fun of working with an organization like this, where we do have a vertical for media and content that is separate from marketing, that we obviously have to work incredibly closely with. And at the same time, our PR group's set in a completely different group. So for us, it's really about the communication, making sure that you have representatives for these conversations. Again, going back to that communication piece, letting our PR person who's going to be with this person we just drafted know, here's your point of contact on our social side. Here's your point of contact on the media and content side. So if it's, hey, I'm with this prospect, he wants to go visit his family, we're actually taking a new path. Everybody's in the loop. And it's getting to the people who need that information more than anybody else. I'm not the boots on the ground, so to speak, so I don't really need to know. As long as that's getting communicated to the person who needs to know, we're in good shape.
So is there it goes from a functionally point of view, is there a tool or is there something that the team uses to keep in touch, or is it still a mix of emails and text and maybe WhatsApp groups, or is it Slack? Is there something that's sort of developed, because there's now more of these tools that are cross-functional comms tools? Have you got something along that, or are you still sort of going old-fashioned and sending text and even calling people at times?
Text and calling are definitely old faithful when it comes to that. We do use Microsoft Teams quite a bit. It's a good place to share files with chat, things like that. That's really where we've moved recently to make sure that communication is happening and that documentation is happening and everybody's feeling good and in the loop.
The NFL especially, information and the way it travels and the newsbreakers, the Adam Schefters of the world looking for information all the time. How important it is that your team builds trust with you, especially PR and your comms people, to hold on to those secrets and make sure that they're not released beforehand and that you can sort of manage that. How have you managed that? You would have seen, I guess, the tried and true PR person that held onto the information to the very last minute, and you've had to build that trust so they can open up and share it more internally with your comms team. How is that built over the years? Yeah,
I mean, it's like you said, it really just comes down to trust, where this information is out there or it's floating around, but there's really nothing we can do with it. And, NHL trade deadline is a great example of that, where we'll know a trade happened, but paperwork hasn't been submitted to the league. And so it's funny because not a lot of fans realize this. So they're seeing all these people out there saying, we know this trade happened. This has been reported. But we as a team, as a property, we can't say anything about it because, nothing's actually officially gone through. So for us, it's just a lot of, sitting and waiting. Or there's the alternative on a night like a draft where you're just running 100 miles per hour trying to get everything done that you honestly don't have time to leak it. There's just other things you have to do. I think if somebody actually found the time to leak some information out from at least our team with everything going on, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, it is a funny one because especially when, you have to do something official and all you have is thousands of fans screaming at a Twitter account, please confirm it, please confirm it. And the person's there got the thumbs and they could type it and says, yes, it's confirmed, but you've got to go through the process. But then you've also got to spend that time to get everything right because the fans can't like it and retweet it and post about it until it does official. So there is a little bit of let's dot all the I's, cross all the T's, make sure everything's right. So when we push it out, it gets the maximum impact. But that pressure to be first is more on the journalist side than the teams. And so it's much better to take your time, get it right, execute it how you want to execute it. Because your fans are going to rally around that piece of content when that news comes out anyway. Because that's what they're waiting for.
Right. And it goes back to kind of an interesting balance that we have to strike and where we sit, because we really have to serve two masters, so to speak, and that's to provide information, but to also entertain. And it goes back to how are you striking that balance, right? As tempting as it is to be to go ahead and say these things, we are restricted. But also, how do you balance out that news and this thing happen with the entertainment side, where if you're just sitting there and reporting scores all day long, nobody's going to really pay you much mind for much longer because there's far more entertaining ways to get that information.
Yep. So one of the things we did, we sort of talked about, I guess, reactive marketing a little to a certain degree. You do all the planning for NFL draft, and you get this is how our style and it's going to look like, but you don't know what the players are going to look like, what hats they're going to wear, those kind of things. So you do that type of planning and have the feet on the ground to capture what you can. But then there's other pieces where you can plan, and one of the things I think the NFL teams do well is their schedule release. You see all the teams sort of raising the bar on how they're going to do their schedule release. Do you want to take us through, I guess, that process for you guys from when do you get the schedule, and then how you go about working on your here's our schedule release video and sort of the process around that?
Yeah, so it's a funny question for us, and the reason I say that is because for us, we've placed a ton of importance on that schedule release. And it's funny to me to see other teams do the same. But the reason for us it's so important is because we as a brand, one of the ways that I try to think about brand is world creation. So what world have you created that you want to invite people into? And for us on the Bills side, it's really about Sunday. The world revolves around Sunday. It's that event of coming to a game because our games still very much have that event feel to them, potentially more than other markets. I don't want to speak for other markets, but with that mindset, you look at a schedule release where you need to know what Sundays you need to have free. So that's always been a big event for us. And it's funny to watch other teams jump on board with probably very similar frames of mind as they go about it. So for us, what we do is we have somebody who leads, and it's actually led by our director of social media, since that's where this essentially gets announced. So it really lies at her feet, and we collaborate with other groups at the Bills quite a bit with the media and content team in terms of what's the idea. How are we going to announce this, and what are our goals for it? The last year we did a pet adoption, a dog adoption format to it, where we worked with an animal shelter to actually have dogs represent all of our opponents that were adoptable, and had a Facebook Live format, made it at least seem like a Facebook Live format. And that's how we announced it. So there was a little bit of it was fun, but more in a cute kind of fluffy way. Actually, I guess literally a fluffy way, with a little little spin of, helping a local animal shelter that we could all feel good about. So this year we did something that was more humorous, taking a little bit of a shot towards some of our opponents with a Tinder, a mocked Tinder app kind of view, kind of scrolling through all our different opponents. So, when we looked at it this year, it's like, all right, we went the path of adoption. Let's try to be a little bit more lighthearted this year. We kicked around a few different ideas, some involving players, some not. But the biggest obstacle is, how are you going to splice this video together? Because we will not have a lot of time. The way the process works is the league does not really provide us anything in writing, or ask us not to put anything in writing. So our owner and president will get contacted by the league saying, here's your schedule. She'll call the people who need to know, tell them via phone what it is. And then it just becomes a scramble amongst our team to get all the graphics made, to get all the videos made and edited. So, so
just from a time, again, it's hilarious for the massive beast that is NFL. That's, someone in the NFL is calling your president to say, here's the schedule, and saying, these are the games. What's the embargo? They say, here it is. ESPN is going to releasing it this, or is there any coordinate? Is there any timeline, or is there any coordination of that, or is it really, hey, we've got to rush it out, otherwise, the ESPN are going to push it out, or the NFL.com are going to push it out, and you sort of lose that buzz. Yeah,
so it is embargoed until 8 p.m. We're told at this time you can release it. So that's, of course, why you see all the videos and all the announcements come out at once. It's something that they've kept protective to keep that event feel towards it. We kind of scramble to get it done and edit it. And when you do the videos, you've got to compartmentalize everything, every opponent, and then kind of splice them together.
Stitch it together.
Yeah, exactly right.
So is it? Are we talking? It's a day. It's 2 days. It's a matter. It's hours.
It's hours. It's sometimes more hours than others. But it's typically day of. We'll find out, at some point in the afternoon, and then the announcement happens at 8 p.m. that night. So it's something that we always have our creative team on call. We have our group on call. We'll find out maybe a couple days in advance that it's coming on a specific day, so we know to be ready for it. And then once that information's passed on, we fly through and get everything ready to go.
It is amazing for all the things that are set in stone around sports. There are some really big moments that get planned and executed in such a short period. But I guess that is the tough part of trying to coordinate 30 odd partners and teams, and then broadcasters and all of those pieces. That sort of creates that urgency.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's nothing we're not used to, but it's every year. Every year you go through the process.
Yeah, that's terrific. So, as part of PSC, because a lot of times if you're working with a team, you're seeing the other teams in your market as competitors, but you've got two teams in market, in the Bills and the Sabres. How do you tackle it from a marketing point of view to have them, work together, so to speak?
Yeah, and it's it's nothing that's really unique to us. I've seen other teams in other markets who have different ownership. I mean, they collaborate all the time, right? We were just looking at a few photos earlier today for another project of the St. Louis Blues wearing Cardinals-inspired uniforms in their warm-ups. And we don't function that differently. I think what's unique to us, though, given our market, is that we're not necessarily worried about cannibalizing ticket sales from each other. But from a marketing standpoint, and particularly in the digital standpoint, we essentially have a different set of competitors when it comes to fan experience. So for us, it's not a matter of looking at another team's app mobile app or mobile experience, saying, okay, that's what they do, so that's the expectation. Yep. For us, we're competing against everybody who alters your expectation for what these experiences should be. So Amazon has completely altered what our fan expectation is for e-commerce. And, apps like Uber and Lyft and how seamless they work and how easy payment is, like that's the bar that's been set forth for us. And that we really have to worry about whether that's fair or unfair, given the resources that those massive companies have. It's the reality. Your Google search results and recommendations for you, all those different things are really setting an expectation of our fan base. And so that's what we really look at as kind of our competition, right? Because we're not competing with another team. We're competing with ourselves, but even then it's not that intense of a competition, because if things are going great on the Bills side, that's good for us. And if that shifts over to the Sabres side, still good for us. So,
yeah. And the thing is, they are two, I guess, very different products. You talk about the Bills and that effectively that event programming, how it all revolves around Sundays, and you've got more frequency and more games from an NHL point of view. So there's a different cadence to it. There's a different ticket sales sort of process. So you have those differences from a marketing point of view.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We have different fan bases. It's so easy in our market to say, well, if you're a Bills fan, then you're definitely going to buy every other ticket that exists. But that's not necessarily the case. Different people have different motivations. And what's nice is we can really run the gamut. We've got the massive national attention grabbing NFL. We've got the NHL, which, we are very much an NHL market. People love the league. We are typically in Stanley Cup Finals ratings. We are usually the second or third highest TV rating market for that. It's usually the two teams playing in it and then us. So we've got a passionate fan base there that's a bit different. And then we've also got the Bandits, which provides us another alternative that's a little bit more of a counterculture league, more of a startup league. We're one of the oldest teams in it. We've won a few championships. It's a lower price point, and their games are a ton of fun. So when we talk about, high school kids or younger professionals who want to come out to a sporting event, it gives us another option to go out with, which works for us. There shouldn't be any sports fan in our market, unless they're diehard baseball, that we can't appeal to with some product or entity.
And that sort of gives that sort of a one-team feel of all things PSC to sort of really be serving the Buffalo market in that way?
Yeah, and so that's one of the initiatives that we've had, is to really bring these things under one umbrella. Where how are we cross-selling, how are we cross-promoting? And the way that's kind of manifested itself over the last few years is we launched the My One Buffalo app. And it's a mobile app which started as really a venue app as we kind of unify these teams, and it's continued to evolve to include a bit more content and scheduling and trying to provide a seamless fan experience for somebody in our market that they can interact in and touch all of our properties. So you can manage your Bills tickets in there, your Sabres tickets in there, your Bandits tickets in there. It's got venue enhancements for both the arena and stadium. It's something that we've seen in the marketplace between Major League Baseball and the NHL, where they consolidated all of their teams into one app. And when the NHL did that, we took a look at it and understood from a league standpoint what they were going for. But for us, it didn't make sense, as we thought through it. Okay, if you're a Sabres fan, you're probably not that interested in the Boston Bruins or the Arizona Coyotes or some of these other teams. So why are you sharing an app with them? That's not necessarily the news that you want. So for us, if you're a Sabres or Bills fan, you probably like the other Buffalo team. So if we're going to move into a consolidation model, which looks like a trend that's slowly happening, who's to say if the NFL or NBA will follow suit? But that's something that we looked at as an opportunity to start to bring our properties under one unified space in the mobile arena.
It has had people rethinking, I guess, what what the purpose of the app is and why you have it. I think a lot of it is around the customization you can put around the venue, and what you were saying before about the fan experience and what they're expecting. Like they're expecting to be able to open up and have the app have different features when they're at the stadium from a geo sort of location point of view. But yeah, as the apps become more homogenized, you sort of lose that community feel. I'm a member. I feel like part of this team and part of this club, and so there is a bit of a snapback to what you've done there with My One Buffalo.
Yeah, and it's it gives us an opportunity, kind of as you were alluding to learn more about our fans, because it's a single view of a fan. And so ultimately our goal, the path that we want to be on, is to customize this experience for somebody, not because they said something to us, but by their actions. So if you come to 5 straight Sabres games, we want to be able to message you or do something for you as a thank you, acknowledge you in some way, or begin to customize your experience within the app around those actions and those behaviors, where it's all of our properties under one roof. But if you've taken actions that suggest you only care about the Bills, that's fine. We'll give you only stuff about the Bills then within this platform. But it's more us coming to you and customizing for you, rather than you, kind of being a hand raiser or having to put out more effort to say, no, this is the thing I want, which, we want your actions to kind of speak for yourself in terms of what we provide you.
I think that's part of, I think you've seen a lot of teams try to, and even myself, we built one, sort of force that loyalty piece on fans and sort of make them jump through hoops. But I like sort of this, it's almost like passive loyalty, like, oh, you're doing this. We're seeing you're doing this. And we have the option to reward you or message you or, give those personalized messages. So it's loyalty, but not as, I guess, as it, like, oh, please go and tap your phone at booth, 123 and collect some points. Whereas this is just use the app. If the app is functional and is usable to you, then you'll find good function. You get more data, but then you can reward. And effectively, by them using it, you've built, you've got this loyalty program that you haven't gone and announced and branded and told everyone about, but you start getting a better relationship with the fan as a result.
And that is exactly the premise behind it. So one of the emerging trends at the old company I used to work at just before I left was around this idea of loyalty and rewards programs. And I thought the thinking was so flawed that we're calling this loyalty, right? Like if you're showing up just to get a punch card punched and get a sandwich, you don't have any loyalty to that organization. Once you get your 10th sandwich and it's free, are you going to come back?
It resets.
Yeah. If the answer is maybe, then that's not loyalty. My feeling is people aren't drinking Diet Coke because they can unscrew a cap and type in a number and get a duffel bag. They're drinking Diet Coke because of a myriad of other reasons, including they like the taste, its cultural standing, all the different reasons that are out there. So when I got here, we actually had an app, what you're describing, the points as currency. And, we saw the foibles that happen with these things all the time where, we've got a leaderboard and people are upset that they're not at the top of the leaderboard because they think they've done a lot. They complain that the jersey costs too many points and how am I ever going to get a free jersey? It turns such a well-intentioned thing into such a negative. So when we revamped the program, it was based on a model that I had put together at the last place I was at. And it was really inspired more, frankly, from casinos and how they operate, where you are in a certain level and you are at a certain tier. Like you're not playing blackjack for the hopes of a free buffet, hopefully. You're playing because it's something you want to do, and there's another sense of gratification you get from that action. It's just this is a framework that keeps you coming back to this one location or thanks you or makes you feel good about the decisions that you had made to that point. So what we did is, our old program, to your point about all the actions that are required, in the old program, you would come in, hand your ticket to a ticket taker, they scan it, hand it back to you, you take out your phone, you open the app, you click in the camera icon, you scan your ticket, you get your points, and that's all the steps you had to go through. Now we know your ticket is in your name. So if your ticket scans, we give you credit for showing up. And then on top of that, we put beacons throughout the building. So if the tickets are not in your name, if you're somebody's guest, but you have your Bluetooth and location services on, and we pick you up, we'll give you credit. So we ditched this idea of points as currency. We never talk about points. We never get into how close you are to the next level. We tell people how they, can earn. Earn is the phrase that we use. And again, it just comes with a set of benefits that are there. So points as currency is gone, and automating the earning process were the two biggest things where, we used to put codes in our TV broadcast. And, they'd be on Twitter 5 minutes after we share it, and people were typing it in. And, that's not an indicator of somebody's loyalty. That's who's willing to game the system.
Yeah, and it does come down to the gamification. You build out a system that can have rewards. People's nature, they will try to game it. They will try to cheat. They will try to get to the top of the leaderboard to show how much of a fan they are, because because they are loyal. I actually think what you just did to describe the process, and if anyone is building out a loyalty system and they have to, you have to do certain things, literally say it out loud. Like, you have to take your camera out. You have to take a photo. You have to click this button. Then you have to, co-sign it and send it off. Like, when you say it out loud, you go, why would anyone do that?
Exactly.
It's sort of, if someone's going to do the demo, ask them to explicitly say what they have to do, and then go, would you actually do it? And you go, actually, I won't. Whereas, you're right. Casinos, airlines, all of that, they've done loyalty for so long, and it's just part of what you do. And you go, you sort of look and you go, look at what rewards I can now get because of the actions I've done. And I think that's where, the personalization of marketing and stuff like that is leading, and it's a better feel for, I guess, what loyalty is.
Yeah, and even the airlines are a great example of how much the experience portion of it matters. So my wife travels for work a lot, and so she's got a lot of points with an airline, but that's not what she's worried about. Like, we get to use it for a free flight every now and again. But what she mentions to me more than anything else is, I need 3 more legs to get to this status, which means now you're on the standby for first class list. You get to skip one of the first people to board, free checked luggage, like things that are not, what am I going to exchange my points for, but things that are experience related. And that's where the value comes in. And that's where you can make fans, again, feel good about their decisions, feel good about being a season ticket holder or attending these games or, purchasing merchandise or concessions. Like, that's where you need to win. Like, nobody tells a story about redeeming points for a pint glass. They tell a story about getting to go to a suite for a night, or getting to watch warm-ups from the bench, or going onto the field after a game and playing catch with their son or daughter. That's the stuff that we need to focus on as we move forward in that space.
So the other thing we talked before we got started was around some of the ways to reward people who are season ticket holders or members, as we call them here, in stadium, around the concession pricing. What do you? Can you explain to what that is and how that's been rolled out and received?
Yeah, so we launched this year with the Sabres season ticket holder pricing on concessions. So what we do is season ticket holders will pay the same price regardless of game for concession items. But what we do is we change the price based on opponent, day of the week, really how good or bad the game is. Because, like you said, with 41 home games, you're going to have some Saturday nights that are excellent, and then you're going to have some Tuesday nights that are not great. So we variably price that concession pricing, one, to capture a bit more revenue, but more importantly, to provide another benefit for our season ticket holders. Anything we can do to make them feel valued and that we're looking out for them and make them have a better experience, we aim to do. So this is something we run through the app that I was describing before. Another benefit of our membership program is that we're able to run benefits through it that are best served living in a digital space. So by having it be digital everybody should have their mobile phone with them for the most part. And it helps us not have issues of people sharing these things. So, it's a QR code that refreshes every 30 seconds. You can't screenshot it because it'll either expire, or we have a little animated GIF underneath the QR code. So it's very clear when it's been screenshot and shared. So we run the program through the app for season ticket holders. When they sync their account, they go into a specific membership level. It's available at all of our home games. Again, the pricing varies. Been a huge hit with our fans, with our season ticket holders. They've really enjoyed it. It's raised our per cap by $2, which is not insignificant, and it has led to a lot more revenue. So, so far been a great thing that we've been able to offer for them, and been really happy with the results of it thus far.
So 2 things I like about it. One, it gives you an automatic use case for everyone to download the app and use the app. Because that's always the toughest thing to say, because, download our app, and you ask, when's the last time you downloaded an app?
Right.
And so it's like when you've got a function of, if you download this app, you will get, $1 off a hot dog every time you go. And you're like, oh, cool, I understand that now. That's why I'll have to download the app. And then the other thing is, again, talking about gaming the system and people trying to get every benefit they can, the fact that you've got the animated GIF at the bottom of the QR code, so the vendor can see whether it's the real deal or not. It must have been good to be able to come up with that design and go, oh yeah, we know people are going to do it. We love our fans, but they're all going to try to do it. Everyone wants a discount. So pretty much the process works. So when the Red Wings come to town and there's a big crowd, that the concession prices will go up, and your members can still get them at the same fixed price.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the GIF, I don't think this has happened yet, but I'm dying for somebody to come down to our account services and say, my discount isn't working, and show us clearly a screenshot, because the GIF isn't animated, in which we can just simply say, wait a minute, where'd you get that? But I don't think anybody's fallen for that yet. And, the third benefit to it is we have a lot of season ticket holders who share their tickets, ticketing partners, which we completely support. We understand 41 games is a lot. And if having 2 or 3 people share them with you keeps you as a season ticket holder, that sounds great for us.
Yep.
So what we did is we expanded that benefit, because it lives in the app, to anybody you share your seats with. So if you do have some partners, we just created a simple form online. Hey, what's your name? What's your account number?
To transfer the ticket.
Yeah. Who do you share with? And we just move them up into that membership level within the app. And from a data side, it's awesome for us, because now we know that, hey, this person shares their tickets with these 2 other people. These other 2 people we've been sending individual game emails to, or messaging. So now our data is stronger, and we understand a behavior that is incredibly beneficial for us to know, and can start catering that messaging a bit better.
Yeah, that's definitely a bit of a curveball use case as we move from paper tickets or a single card where you just physically hand the card to your friend to, we're moving to digital, and it completely breaks that model. Mm-hmm. Like you go, oh, cool, we'll all be digital, but it's like, oh, hang on, we share.
Right.
So it's good to actually have that use case covered. And then the benefit is, you're now getting those 2 other people's data. You never would have even known they existed.
Right. And it goes back to the experience. Now, somebody who shares their tickets isn't getting, 3 emails from us saying family packs are on sale, but we can actually cater to them and say, try to sell them some merch or something else.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, John. I'm going to go into the Sports Geek Closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
I do not remember the event, but if I had to bet, so I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and my parents are Ohio State alums. So I can almost guarantee it was an Ohio State football game at the Horseshoe. The specific one, I couldn't tell you, but if it wasn't that, I will be absolutely stunned. And clearly it was at a young age, because I don't remember it.
Oh yeah, but you would have been to a fair few of the games at that age anyway.
Oh yeah. It seemed like we would usually go to about 1 a year. Once I was probably around 10, I would say 10 or 11. every now and again we get tickets to a game and go. Typically with one of my parents' friends who are season ticket holders, they might get a few extra tickets and invite us to go. So yeah, it was fun.
And you would have been to a few sports events in your time. Do you have a favorite food at a sports event or a favorite food memory?
I am a sucker for stadium nachos. Stadium nachos, for some reason, are one of my favorite foods in the world, even though I realize the cheese sauce is probably not actually any form of cheese. And the chips are...
It's just some yellow stuff.
Yeah, it's like yellow goo and then like a salty circle. I can't help myself whenever I go to a game. And I know just how horrible it is for me, but, I so rarely get to attend events as a fan anymore that it's, one of my first moves. It's all right. I got to get the nachos. So
guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Which is part of being a sports fan. It's part of the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the first app you open in the morning?
This is one of the lamest answers possible, I think, but it's my calendar. When you've got as many brands and responsibilities and changing day-to-day responsibilities, it's important for me to, one, kind of get my mind in the right place of what's coming up, but also I want to know how nice I have to dress that day. So, am I going to a meeting with some folks with our sponsorship side where I need to look nice, or is this a day where it's just a few internal conversations and I can just wear, jeans and the quarter zip, pullover, and tennis shoes and be comfortable for the rest of the day?
That's pretty much why I check my calendar in the morning as well. Am I just putting on a hoodie and jeans, or a shirt and suit jacket because I've got some client meetings? So I definitely understand that.
And there's nothing more disappointing when I think, hey, I got an open day tomorrow, when I go to bed the night before, and then I wake up and there's like 3 appointments I completely forgot about that are massive. And it's like, all right, never mind. I guess this one's going to be a rough one.
Yeah, 6:30 and you're ironing a shirt. It's
right.
Like, oh, well, that's life. Is there someone that you either follow or read or have worked with that the Sports Geek podcast listeners should follow, and why?
I love Down Goes Brown, Sean McIndoe, and hopefully I didn't mispronounce his last name. He covers the NHL. He is just such a fun writer, such a funny guy, and so knowledgeable about the game. He writes for The Athletic, so that's mostly where I read him now. He also released a book recently on the history of the NHL, which I'm currently reading. Just a great follow. Like I said, he's a funny guy, very knowledgeable about the space. And I'm probably more hockey fan than any other sport. So it just makes a lot of natural sense for me to follow somebody like that.
And do you, on that type of point and following people on the journalist side, do you try to take inspirations from people like John on, say, how can we do content like that, whether it's the style or the take, and how you can bring it back into what you're trying to do at the Sabres?
I tend to look more to other teams and properties and how they do that. And so the challenge for me is I don't want to lose the fan side of my brain, right? So my Twitter feed is not every single NHL team. I follow the Columbus Blue Jackets because I grew up in Columbus, and then I follow the Vegas Golden Knights because I just think they're really good at what they do on Twitter and in that space. So it's more so what am I coming across as a fan, just going through the natural progression, and how am I interacting with it is typically how I find that inspiration and judge. And actually, schedule release for the NFL is a great example. Like, I didn't go team by team and see what they did. I just kind of saw what naturally popped into my feed. That told me more about what was resonating with fans and what I as a fan can expect to see. Because obviously I follow the Bills. But I don't think I follow any other NFL teams in my personal feed. So for me, the Chargers popped up, the Carolina Panthers popped up, the Browns popped up. And it gave me a good gauge of like, okay, these teams did something that resonated. What is it that resonated, and what can we learn and move forward with? I don't want to say steal, but maybe steal.
No, one of the phrases I use a lot on the podcast is steal with pride. Take someone else's work and rework it with your brand and your story and for your fans and your fan voice, and then it becomes your own. I do think that it does make a good point. We've previously done in the past, sort of captured all of the the schedule releases. Said here's how the teams all look at them, and if you just look at them as pieces of work, they're all great. And they've all got their own nuances, but actually going, how well did they connect with that audience? How much traction did they get? How much amplification did they get? Is a different piece. And so, like, just what did pop up in your feed that's not expected, because normally the cream rises, so You'll see the best of the best, get shared. So yeah, it is a good way of sort of keeping a finger on the pulse without getting caught in the bubble of I have to be watching what everyone else is doing, because you can get a little bit stale if you're just watching what everyone in your league is doing or what everyone is doing in your market, because there's opportunities to see what other people are doing, and the stuff that gets risen to the top will be the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also reflects kind of, the feed that you've curated as well, right? I mean, there are some things that will probably never show up regardless of good or bad, just because you've got kind of a sense for what have you created, right? And that's part of the fan experience, where at some point you need to decide which feed do you want to show up in. Do you want to show up in the weird, funny side of the feed, or do you want to show up in the beautiful photography side, or do you want to show up in the news breaking side? I mean, that's part of branding, is kind of making a decision as to what you are, and just accepting that you're not going to resonate with some people in some spaces, but you're true to yourself and what you believe is right.
Yeah, and it is really important to stay true to that, because it's if this is your brand and this is how you've been talking to people, and then you go, oh cool, here's this event, and you take a complete left turn and you go, and now we'll be funny and edgy, and you're like, well, hang on, we've groomed our fans to expect this kind of content, and then we've done something else. It's sometimes can miss the mark because your fans aren't ready for that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So lastly, is what social media platform is your MVP? Now, normally I say I answer it personally and as the team, so you can pick whichever team, but is there a platform that works that's your MVP? And then maybe one that's the primary one for the Bills and the Sabres?
Yeah, so it's Twitter, as I'm sure I exposed that fact just on how I answered the last question. But that's really a matter of, when I joined that Emerging Spaces company, one of the first things my boss had me do was sign up for Twitter. And I think, that was around 2007. I'd have to check my profile to see, when I actually joined. But that's, 12-ish years now of following very specific people, asking other people, it is an echo chamber, like creating a perfect little echo chamber for me. Also the writer in me loves the 140 character limitation. And so, it's one of those things that I just love, because it's a lot of, individuals and personalities that I follow, as opposed to brands or teams or companies. It's a lot of people who are good at the craft of writing and capturing things and frankly making me laugh. So for me personally, it's Twitter, and also the news side of it. Just news breaks there immediately. And I get a little frustrated that I always have to say I want to see the latest tweets and not whatever performed against an algorithm. Because I truly am there because I want to see what's happening most recently. I don't want to see something from 2 days ago that a lot of people liked. I don't care. That's just how I've crafted it for myself. For our teams, though, Instagram has become the big winner. It's moved in leaps and bounds. We just see great results there in terms of engagement, getting together with fans. It's such a visual medium. And that when we're trying to sell experiences and give you a visceral reaction or an emotional reaction, the visual piece of it is just so critical and so huge. So, that space being such a visual driver, it's just, really come on in the last, really feels like 2 or 3 years for us as kind of our lead horse.
Yeah, it's kept growing, and then the addition of stories has just made it a bigger beast. The engagement that's driving, I guess, part of us that have been around this digital game for a long while, like just almost waiting for the eventual turning of the algorithm to that we saw on Facebook, and whether that will happen on Instagram. But the way that these things work, when they're hot, you run them as hard as you can, and Instagram is as hot as hell at the minute.
Absolutely. And they've done an incredible job of finding ways to have commerce be a part of it. There's ways that you can swipe up during a story and get taken to a ticketing link, and we're not left trying to figure out, like, okay, well, is there a way to monetize this? Is there a way to drive revenue? But that's, they've done it in a way that doesn't feel like we're invading your space. It's tough in some of these other platforms to not be around a conversation amongst people and be the person holding the megaphone shouting, buy a ticket. And I think they've done a very good job of that and kind of integrating it in a less invasive way.
So John Durbin, VP of Sports Marketing at Pegula Sports, what's the best way for people to connect with you on this thing called the internet?
Probably the best way is either through LinkedIn. Funny enough, I jokingly describe it as the only good social network, which I actually half believe as time has gone on. So yeah, I don't post a ton there, but I do check it pretty often. And then I also do have a work Twitter account, PSE_Durbin. I do not check that very often, though. So if you're sending me messages on there, I apologize for any massive delays in a response. Well,
you do have the hashtag. You do have the hashtag never tweet in your profile, so it's right out there up front.
Yeah.
So John Durbin, thank you very much for coming to the podcast. I hope to catch up with you again on the conference circuit, or make my way to Buffalo for a game sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great chatting, and thanks again.
New workshops on audience, content, distribution, valuation, and pitch following Sports Geek's Digital to Dollars process. Go to digitaltodollars.com.
Thanks again to John Durbin. Please connect with him. Send him a tweet at PSE_Durbin, Durbin. Understand that he won't tweet back, but I want to see his tweet mentions filled. Maybe we can lure John out of the lurking territory. But please connect with him on LinkedIn. The links to connect with John are in the show notes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/234. Before I wrap up, just do a little bit of discussion around digital to dollars. I've had a few people inquire recently on is there flexibility and how it can run and how it can work for the team, whether you're an established team, a new team, trying to figure out where you're fit, you want to retrain some people. It does work in multiple different methods in that across the 5 pillars. And so depending on where your team is at, whether you've got an established team, you're looking to rebuild or reformat or reorganize your team, it also provides a good impetus for that. Going over the 5 pillars, knowing your audience, helping the whole team understand the data, understand the audience personas you have, understand the most engaged audiences you have, the under-engaged audiences, and identifying them, because definitely some content and sponsorship opportunities come out of that workshop. Knowing your content, which is a real drill into the content that you're developing, why you're developing it, who you're developing it for, what are the goals of that content, and then starting to get that commercial focus of who the sponsors that will best benefit from it. Knowing your distribution is a really strong review of all of your social and digital and email platforms. What are the touch points that you're reaching out to your fan? How are you using them, and how is your content flowing through those pipes? What channels are you using to push out that content? Is it a piece of content that gets spliced up and put on all channels? Is it a piece of content that gets spliced up and dedicated to a specific channel? Those kind of things, and it starts forming effectively strategies around the different platforms. And so those first 3 pillars of audience, content, and distribution help bed down your digital strategy. You might have one. It's a really good exercise to dot the I's, cross the T's, put some rigor around that piece, and get everyone on the same page. Then the final two components are know your pitch, know your value, and know your pitch. And they are really working on the commercial value of what you're doing from a digital point of view. So developing your own internal rate card, getting agreement amongst multiple parties on both the value and the cost of what you're developing, and then starting to work on what pitches look like with integrating your branded content pieces and the content you're developing for sponsors, as well as wider, bigger pieces around campaigns and data capture that you can go to sponsors. So please get in touch. Like I said, there's a lot of flexibility in how it can work. It can work as a one-day session, a 2-day workshop across a whole team. It can work as 5 separate workshops, those kind of things. So please get in touch. You can check out more at digitaltodollars.com or email me, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. And as always, if you want to stay on top of the latest trends and news, I'm recording this and the Sports Geek news just went out. You can get that. That is all the articles that I've been reading for the previous week around sports and digital and technology and marketing and trends. I'm always watching things like the recent F8 conference, what Mark Zuckerberg says he wants to do. That sort of lays the plan for the next 12 months. So you can sign up for that, sportsgeekhq.com/SGN. If you are already a subscriber, thank you very much. And then also we've launched one for esports around the SG esports business, where we're keeping that as a fortnightly newsletter to keep in touch with the latest in esports, both from a game development, fan development, where the money's moving in esports, and some of the trends. And so if it's something that you want to keep an eye on, then go to sgesports.com and sign up for the newsletter there. Until next episode, remember, you can always get in touch with me, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. And if you want to pick my brain, simply book in a session, sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Follow our League of Legends esports team at gravitas.gg. For more resources, go to sportsgeekhq.com. Looking for new campaign ideas to drive new and fresh data and leads? Contact Sean to find out how SportsGeek can help you drive fans into your stadium. It's all about the cheeks in the seats.